Hello, everybody. I am thrilled to introduce today's guest on the Side of Syrup podcast. We've got Julie O'Brien from Firefly Kitchens. She's got quite a story of how she came to be and how she is obsessed and loving fermented foods and why everyone should have it in their daily diets. But first, I actually met Julie through my very best friend through a chance meeting she had with Julie in Seattle. And that's how you sort of meet the best people. Good people will attract good people. And so I have known Julie a little bit now, and I've been using her products, and I have some favorites, which we'll get into. but I'm really impressed because she makes fermented food fun and very, very tasty, and it's become a household staple for us. So without further I can't even speak today. Without further ado, here is Julie. Julie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for being a fan of fermented foods, because we're all healthier and stronger together. You know what I mean? And so the more people that we get who believe in the possibilities, the better off we are as a small business.
100%. And the better off we are as humans if we're
Yeah.
taking care of our gut and really feeding, I like to say, like feeding the good bugs,
Yeah.
then that's a win for us all. Whether no matter what age you are, I'll say that.
Well, that's one of those things I love to share with people, is that, these foods are for everybody. These foods aren't for just cultured people or woke people or sick people. These foods it's a vegetable that's been fermented for a month. And now I always say it's like a bionic vegetable. So these foods are for everybody, happy people, sad people, large people, small people, sick, healthy. And I love helping everybody. But for me, the excitement lies in the prevention and the possibilities, and, getting rid of the old stigma about sauerkraut, and, 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 and making it not just something you put on your hot dog or your brats, once a week or once a month, but rather an ingredient that you are eating every single day. And I have a vision where someday our families are all just fermenting at their house every day. You just grow up knowing, all right, it's time to put my cabbage and salt and let it sit and do its thing, because I believe that this food is about as medicine-y as food can get.
Totally. And I think there's definitely a stigma of like the aged food, but it's silly because I know so many of my listeners' favorite foods are wine and cheese, two things that have to age in order to taste good.
Well, charcuterie, cheese, sourdoughs. There's so many good things out there. Chocolate, coffee, all these things that have been around for a long time that are really valued in our culture still today, because there's just been this art, associated with it, and pleasure and luxury, and there's no shortage of wine, selling good wine. But I feel like sauerkraut has kind of not really enjoyed that limelight or, spotlight until they really started looking at the gut and the microbiome. And it's like, oh, so bacteria, which we just used to think were all bad, turns out there's good and bad bacteria. Oh, and it turns out we're a lot more bacteria than we ever thought. And oh, maybe we shouldn't be just pasteurizing and killing everything, but yet honoring these bugs, these probiotic bacteria that grow naturally when allowed to during a natural fermentation process. So it's pretty exciting. It's exciting to be a part of that, because we've been fermenting for over 13 years now. And it's been a slow damn uphill battle trying to make it be an everyday item on a table.
For sure. And it's interesting to me. that I have 3 young kids, and anytime any of my kids has been on a medication, our pediatrician always says to have yogurt afterwards,
Mhm.
to sort of build up that good bacteria.
It's
And
because
I
the
don't
dairy council's had its day, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
right? But I don't remember a time, like, when I was a kid, it was like, "Oh, you have medication and you're fine, you're healthy again." There's no, like, period where, like, "You know what? You should take care. You've been really sick, or you had this medication to wipe out your system. You need to build that back up." Like, that's just not that wasn't part of the culture, but now it's becoming much more so.
Yes, it's exciting. And again, this is where what I love is that, I like to contribute a lot of Firefly's success to Bastyr University, who, has been, educating naturopaths and acupuncturists for a long time here now in Seattle. And so those people who got the guts before Western med is,
Catching
I
up.
won't go down that path. Anyway, they're trying to just quick fix things, and naturopaths are trying to look at the whole body. And so this is where, not only should we have these foods when we're sick to try to help us
Mhm.
rebuild our systems and combat some of the effects of the antibiotics, but, taking a step back even further, let's incorporate these into everyday life, because we know we're a lot of good bacteria and a lot of bad bacteria. And think about every time we consume sugar, alcohol, processed foods, which, is every day for a lot of us, they are either feeding the bad bacteria or killing the good bacteria. And so you have this lovely, easy opportunity to just add a forkful into your day every day. Now you know that there are new, good, positive, probiotic, healthy bacteria being delivered mainlining into your system. And then those bacteria, because in my mind, they come naturally on these foods. They know
Yeah.
where your body knows what to do with it versus dissolving a pill, of some bugs that are made in a lab. And I'm not knocking them at all, because there's really a lot of good quality high end supplements out there in different ways to get probiotics. But this is just such an easy and incredibly tasty way to do it.
Totally, totally. Yeah, actually, you brought up the alcohol thing. I saw a study you posted yesterday, and I follow a lot of functional medicine folks on Instagram, and this study was making the rounds of, it's not just like when you consume alcohol and then it kind of wipes out your system. It's for up to days afterwards.
Mhm.
So, just if you yes, you could take the probiotic pills or, have cultured yogurt or, whatever, but you could just have fermented foods as part of your daily diet, and then you're not worrying about anything.
Yeah.
You're taken care
I,
of.
I have a wonderful friend who is a pediatric gastroenterologist here in Seattle, Dr. P. Sharoti, and she's with Swedish, and she has shared with me in the past that 90% of her patients that she has, these little people with gut issues, probably 90% of them would not need to see her if she were able to help, if those patients were eating these kinds of foods and just food in general. But so often, by the time they get to her, the damage has been done. And that first rung of doctors just said, yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Try these pills. And so food really is the answer. And this is where I just feel like young moms these days have access to so much more information. I mean, you as a mom, you know so much more than I did when my kids, who are now 22 and 24, you know so much more. We as a culture know so much more. But luckily I feel like I did know 20 years ago that food was really important. I just didn't know why. And I sure as hell didn't know about fermented foods then. So
Yeah, yeah, no, it's super interesting because, there's what the doctors tell you and what you can find online. But like for my youngest son, he had like this very strange facial rash, and I was like, "What's going on?" He's like 4 months old. I don't even know what to do here. And it was before he started foods, like solid foods or anything. And so I was like, I looked into there was like a let me tell you, it was a fortune. It was like $180 a month, like a probiotic supplement, but it was one specific strand for newborns. I'm like, you know what? I'm not putting him on any medicine. I'm gonna try this and see what this can do. And his face cleared up, and it never came back again. And he was on it
Wow.
3 months.
Well,
So
babies come into this world so sterile, right? And then all of a sudden, when they are going through the birth canal, they are getting their first boost of immunity, right? And then hopefully they're getting your milk, and that is the beginning of their population of their immune system. And I just feel like we should be feeding little people sauerkraut. But people are like, oh God, it's alive. There's bugs in there. And I'm like, oh my God, poor moms are like, I remember when we started, we'd be at the farmer's market 13 years ago. And these moms who have been said, that their doctors are like, don't eat raw food. They're when they say that, I think they're talking about raw meat. Don't eat
right,
sushi.
like here's
Like,
some sushi.
well, but do you eat fruit and do you eat vegetables? Because this is just a vegetable with
Yeah,
a bunch of salt in it. In
yeah,
fact, take it a step further. Once it's fermented, after a month, the pH is so low. It's about 3.7,
yeah.
3.5. E. coli and salmonella can't even live in that acidity. And
Mhm.
so it's just one more little untalked about health benefit that these foods, one of the miraculous things that they do all the time that we
Yeah,
don't celebrate.
totally. And when the kids were eating solids, you would send me like a puree that you guys make. And
Mhm.
that's just easy because we'll make smoothies in the morning and you can just pop a little bit of it in. My youngest son also has like a very like he loves the strong taste. So he's game for whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
You have to raise kids not sheltered. Think about, all the people who are like, oh no, it has to be plain noodles and some carrots and maybe some broccoli if you put ketchup on it. And so all we're doing is just encouraging plain, bland, no cross pollinating of flavors. Whereas if you start incorporating these foods in when they're little, I mean, I love watching parents when they're really playful with their kids' palate. And then there are those parents where we'll be sitting there and we're like, you want to try a sample? And they're like, oh no, they won't eat that. And I'm like, well, way to set them up for success.
I know. It's just like have fun with it. You have
Yeah,
fun with your food.
naturally, if they don't have a parent telling them they're not going to like it, I mean, kids will gravitate. And that sour that you get in these foods is really a really important part of a palate, not just sugar and salt, which is what so much of the American diet really is,
Yeah.
but having that sour and, you know,
Yeah. I learned something. My oldest son goes to occupational therapy, and I learned something from one of the therapists, and it really stuck with me of like most of the day we're trying to find our place in the ground. Like, how do we feel like we've got 2 feet there, we're sitting down, we're secure. And as an adult, like you have your ways. Like right now, I'm crossing my legs, I have a pen in my hand when I'm talking. Like there's different ways we can move our bodies to feel that way. But young kids oftentimes don't feel like they have a place in the world. So that's why they run around or
yeah,
jump or move.
still that way. Just
And then she said that food actually helps. Like a really strong, pungent taste can sort of like settle a child down because it gives them a big feeling of sensory awareness in their body.
curiosity too. Like, whoa,
Mhm.
what just happened in my mouth? I
Yeah.
want more of that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of, it's
Yeah.
that's what we oftentimes, sometimes people, they'll take a forkful of our food and they'll go, wow, it's so fresh. Now that is crazy that the word fresh,
Yeah.
the first thing out of the mouth of somebody when they're eating a food that's been fermented, because fermentation is actually the natural breaking down of of the foods, but it's a building of flavor and flavors and probiotics, these new bacteria. And the bacteria are really largely what are a part of the flavors and the enhancement and the commingling of the enjoyment ahead.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, I just want to back up a second. You were extremely passionate about it and you have an amazing product. But how did you get here? Like, where did the idea strike?
My family keeps saying, how did this, where did the last 13 years ago? So when I turned 40, about, almost 17 years ago, my kids were sort of, not needing as much of my time. And I had a small little promotional advertising business I was running at home while remodeling 100-year-old house. And so I enrolled in a nutritional therapy program because I knew I needed to be doing something with people and with food. And so in this sort of holistic eating program, there was a big emphasis on selling supplements. And so I got in there and then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't really want to just, supplements are great, but that's just, again, like people not doing the right, like I'm going to take these pills so I don't have to make a smoothie. I can just take all these things. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely a time and place for it. But that first week of class, I was reading this book called Nourishing Traditions, and the first 69 pages were the nuts and bolts of really a more holistic way of thinking about
Yeah.
foods.
Yeah.
And there were 4 pages in there about naturally fermented foods. And my pop at the time was going through colon cancer. And this big proverbial light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, oh my God, if these fermented foods like sauerkraut, like I was pretty healthy, but I didn't know about sauerkraut being healthy. And that was because back then, 99% of the kraut in this country is all pasteurized or made with vinegar and sugar. So that's
Oh.
why it didn't stick out in my mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I'm just sitting there going, if it's got probiotics and enzymes and electrolytes and vitamin C and acetylcholine and vitamin K2 and helps you with your digestion. And I was like, why aren't doctors prescribing this? Why isn't this on everybody's table every day? How come everybody's not doing it? And so that drastically changed my course of wanting to just work one-on-one with people, because I was like, I would be really bad as a nutritional therapist. I would be making food and giving it to every person that I was in contact with, which is what I'm pretty much doing after 13 years, because it's really hard to grow a food company unless you have VC money behind you, especially a fermented food company. And I just refuse to do that because that's when corners get cut and things are in plastic and they don't do organic. And it's like, why would you be wanting to put a bunch of pesticides in your
Yeah.
food that you're going to ferment and make healthier? So
Mhm.
we absolutely don't sway on the organic piece, because that's essential. And we ferment for a full 30 days. And I just wanted to add that there is a very, very, very big difference between, pickling and fermenting. And the words get interchanged pretty
Yeah.
much a lot. A lot of picklers are riding the fermentation wave and going, oh, these foods are really healthy. And they are. They just don't have the nutrition. They don't have that cabbage as a base, and just taking cabbage and putting sugar and vinegar and then heating it up so it's shelf stable. You're just not comparing apples to apples now.
No, no. It's like, you can make delicious jam or you can like freeze some fruit. Like like you can freeze it with nothing. You can make delicious jam with a lot of sugar, but
Yeah.
it's not going to do you the same as eating the fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I got into it.
Yeah.
That's what made the light bulb go off. And then I kind of was like, what am I going to do? For a couple of years, I'm like, I can't just start making sauerkraut. Then I met a fella through a mutual friend, and then we are like, we should do this. And so we started fermenting, and I remember getting like 80 pounds of cabbage. And then next thing we called the farmer's market, and they said, you'd sell all that in one day. So then we just kind of started ramping up. A caterer let us use her kitchen. And then, 5 months later in the summer, the kimchi smells are wafting up through the storage into the architects above. So we got booted out. So then we found our own home up in the industrial district in Seattle, in Ballard community. So we've been there for the last 12 years.
That's amazing. Amazing. And then where did Angie and you meet? At the Ballard Farmers Market?
We met at a PCC. We were in there doing
Yeah.
demos, and I think her sweetie walked by, and I was like, "You want to try some kraut?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't like that stuff." And when people say that, especially
Yeah.
a smart young man, I was like, "Oh, I got this one."
Right.
And then I kind of called Angie over, and she must have thought I was crazy, but I was just having fun with people who
Yeah.
don't eat sauerkraut, but yet they were dressed to go work out. And so
Mhm.
I probably spent 15 minutes with them, having them taste stuff and
Yeah.
fun. And that's the kind of thing that gives me joy, is really having those connections with people. And here are these people who really value health and good food. They just didn't know. They didn't know about this one more offering that's out there.
Totally. And immediately when she came home, she didn't she didn't call or text me. She ordered me the product, and she's like, "You must try this." And she's like, "Here's a tracking number. This is coming to your door." And I was like, "Okay."
Okay.
Sure.
She's going off. No, well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we do ship, we're mostly a West Coast company, but it's so hard to ship and to be in these grocery stores, because the grocery stores make just as much money. I mean, it just is, the capitalism model is a little bit difficult. So we're trying to start doing more. We do a lot. We ship around the country every week, and it's pretty easy to just have a box show up with your probiotics, your food for a week or two. So I have these visions of doing some really cool, more value added products, because, where I love getting innovative is mixing the kraut with other things. We talked about smoothies, but there's a whole nother slew of ideas that I can share with people. And at the end, I have some little recipe cards, and I have a whole cookbook, but I love giving people those easy ways to get, you can make a probiotic peanut butter in 2 minutes by just blending up unsalted peanut butter with plain kraut, peanut sauce, a power probiotic sauce mixed with yogurt and miso.
Yeah,
So
and that dispels anybody's, like, I won't like this. I can't, because I guarantee in your recipe cards or in your cookbook, there's a taste profile for anyone.
yeah. Well, I put it in desserts. I have this goat cheese, cream cheese tart that has kraut in it, and it's kind of an oat almond cookie crust. And then the top is dried apricots, kind of stewed with apricot jam, and then more kraut in there. And the kraut's not cooked ever, so it's kind of a colder cheese tart. And then I put pistachios on the top. I mean, that thing is so good, because while there's plenty of sweetness and creaminess, it's that salt kind of envelopes its way in there, and it's just every bite is balanced, right?
Yeah.
Then you don't really need to overeat it. So I don't need to go in the dessert making business, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we're
I need that recipe,
okay.
because total side note here, um because of having 3 kids, it's impossible to go out unless it's like a special occasion. So my husband and I have started we're calling it Cafe Pfeffer, where we've got well, it's coming soon, a dining set in our backyard and like hanging lights and all that, and where you have meals in, but like out of the house with like baby monitors.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is why I was so interested in meeting you initially, because he has a terrible stomach and we've never been able to figure out why. He's seen all the doctors and all the
Oh,
specialists, but when he has the regular kraut in his diet, it's so much better. He can't do the spicy kimchi,
yeah.
which I would love for him to be able to
Yeah.
do that. But it's so delicious and easy to throw in.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, and glad that it's giving him some comfort. But again, if you think about these foods, not only are they start in your mouth with flavor and they can jazz up, I'm at that point where almost anytime I eat something, I'm like, you know what this needs? And my kids are like, sauerkraut, it always does. It always needs that crunch and that bright either color or flavor. But then what happens is as it's traveling down through your system, it's already starting to go to work. And so it's like your husband's body knows it goes right to where it's needed, as opposed to like, all right, I'm gonna just beeline straight for the colon. I got some work to do up here. So I have this whole animated visual of probiotic bacteria going through the gut, and I have these invisible superheroes. I've already got names for them. Have a little overactive imagination, but I'm like, kids are the answer. We have to get kids, meaning we have to get moms to talk about these foods. And I'm like, make it at home. You don't have to buy it from Firefly. Make it at home, but just do it. Grab a friend, grab a neighbor, have a community kraut making day,
Yeah. I mean,
because
yeah, I took some of your product. I have a mom's group that meets every couple of months, and there are 4 women in the group who have some sort of nutrition or health background, and they were like, "Yes, like, how do I, figure out how to incorporate this, or how do I know more?" And, I think just like being able to get the word out, because I mean, in marketing speak, like, you've created a direct to consumer brand, and it's just one of those that I feel like everyone needs to hear about, because it's not just for you and your own health, but it's I also think there's something that we haven't quite touched on, but we've talked about it a little bit. Like, everyone's taste buds in this country, at least, are really programmed for the salt and the sweet, and
Mhm.
that's what we go for. Oh, this coffee needs sugar in it to taste better. This dish needs salt in it to taste better. They like that like bitter part of the tongue is really underutilized and could really amp up a lot of flavor and recipes, and sort of fill a need that maybe we go for other things for. Of like, maybe this isn't fulfilling me, so I'm gonna have something sweet or have something salty.
Well,
And
and I think what happens is because so much of the food isn't balanced,
yeah,
people just keep overeating. It's like, when they took the fat out of yogurt and sour cream and all those things, people
yeah,
got bigger because they just ate 5 times as much because there was no fat kind of holding it all together. I feel like sauerkraut or these foods add just one more layer of balance into, so you're not just needing another bite to try to satiate. There's balance going on in your palate, and we all eat way too fast
yeah,
as a culture. And
yep,
so I think, if you just kind of can be a little party going on in your mouth if you put all the right ingredients and right flavors together,
yeah, 100%,
people
100%.
eat quite often, it's like what you were talking about earlier. They're just eating because they think that's what they need to do. And I remember I've been with my husband for 27 years, and we used to go backpacking and we'd make food, and like, he would have a bagel with a piece of turkey on it. And I'm like, oh, excuse me, I need pesto and I need some red peppers and some sprouts and I need all of that other stuff in there.
Yeah,
So I'm I'm being more than fueled. It's just not black and white, carbs. And so he's evolved a lot.
I'm laughing. I'm laughing here. One time I came home, my husband said he cooked dinner, and it was like a salmon, veggie. It was like a whole meal. I walked in the kitchen, and it was a piece of salmon on bread with some mustard. And I was like, I can't eat that. And I was like, I'm not even being a food snob. I'm being like, this is going to have zero flavor, zero anything. Um, but yeah, I think once you sort of like get used to like you need like a little zing, and it doesn't have to be hot sauce and it doesn't have to be maple syrup. There's another option on the table or in the fridge that I feel more people need to try or be open to trying.
Yeah. Shine a little light. Yeah. No, I feel like it adds, we always say pure probiotic brilliance. It's, brighten your bite. I like to say brighten your bite, lighten your load. And, I just can't not bring up one of the number one health benefits. I know I'm standing in my kitchen, but we're not cooking. So, at the end of the day, one of the number one benefits of these foods beyond the taste is the support for your digestive system in so many ways, the number one being bowel movements. I remember meeting a woman who had a 6-year-old who was on high strength laxatives, 6 years old. And she said after eating, she learned about these foods. She gave her daughter a spoon of the classic kraut every day, the plain one. She got off the pills. It was just having the fiber, and for a little tiny body that's missing something, one little bite can do it wonders. So I always tell people, if you haven't had these foods in your diet and you get started, just start small, because they're powerful. They're not gonna clean you out, like getting, food poisoning or something. But if you have a lot of issues and you are now putting all these good bacteria in there, they're going to go and they're going to clean up, and there might be a little bit of discomfort. And that's definitely different than, oh, those foods are too hard on my system. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. And I think like the other link is if you have a good gut, that impacts your immune system, impacts your skin, impacts your dental health as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Well, your metabolism, your blood sugar, I've had people say that anxiety and depression, that this is just, it's like a stabilizer. And, never tell anybody to do anything drastic, go off their meds or whatever. But to hear people just say, God, this food it helps me with X, Y, and Z. I mean, I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot over the years, and I'm grateful. And meeting the customers and hearing from those people are what really keep me going. Right.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And one thing that I learned from the internet. And I tried it when I was pregnant, but the first time being pregnant, I was not sick at all. It was a breeze. The second time I was so sick. But I didn't know about your products then, but another I would say competitor, not as good as yours, on the market, and I would smell it. I would literally it's like just sit there and smell it, and then I would like mix it into like some like rice, just because I couldn't eat a lot at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
Did it
but
help?
it helped. It
Yeah.
helped. It helped like this like nauseating feeling of like, oh, well, maybe I can eat more food now because I feel better. But that was something that I didn't know. I was like, no, this is not going to work. Like this is just like a wives' tale, old wives' tale.
But the whole, I mean, that's, one could say that's placebo, or, like I've often wondered, just when I go into our kitchen and, when we ferment, we'll have like we do 1,000 pounds of, or a ton. How much is a ton? About, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
Yeah,
We do a ton
help
of cabbage at a time. And then on days where we're jarring, we'll go through 4 barrels. Sometimes I'll walk into the kitchen and we're doing kimchi, and you can smell it down the block, and it's our kimchi's vegan. There's no fish or shrimp in it, and we actually use green cabbage instead of napa. So we're really inspired by those wonderful Korean flavors, but we are trying to just make a crunchy, vibrant, more accessible. There's just a lot of people that don't like that fish.
Right.
So I was just like, I always think about, you look at we have all these pores. Why can't that garlic and ginger, all of those probiotics that are in the food, are there some in the air too that we don't even really know about? And I don't know, I was thinking about that. Like, could we put this extra brine on our skin, and could it go through there and actually work?
Probably. I mean,
Probably.
probably.
Yeah.
Like, is there a way? Yeah, I'm like, could you put it in like a carrier oil and then get on
Yeah.
your skin?
I've done facials before where I'll take our plain brine. I did both plain and
Yeah.
kimchi. The kimchi definitely yielded a little redder face, but I mix some at night clay in there. Have you ever
Yeah.
done that? Like I used to just use vinegar, but I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to try the brine, and it was great. It was great.
See,
Can't hurt.
learn something new. There's a product that I'm obsessed with of yours that we haven't talked about, and I didn't tell anyone. We got 6 people living in our house, so I like didn't tell anybody before I put it in. But the salts, the one salt made with the kimchi,
Oh yeah.
and I put it in. I do like a sort of like a pork dumpling burger, uh,
Uh-huh.
and I put it in there, and everyone went bananas. Like, what did you do? What? I'm like, it's literally just the salt.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, that salt is made from a month-long fermentation process of the kimchi. We actually bought a freeze dryer for the kitchen, and
Hmm.
then now we take that, and then it takes like 18 hours to freeze dry the kimchi, and then we grind that up and mix it with organic spices and salts, and then that's what's here.
Yeah,
I'll just show
it's
you.
like
Um,
ridiculous good because it's like it's
it's
not it's not like it is like I hesitate to use spice sometimes 'cause I'll overspice things,
Yeah.
but it's not a flavored salt. I feel like
It
it's the wrong category.
No, it's umami. I mean, salt is flavored,
Yeah,
with spices and stuff, but that's still stuff, you know, your palate still has to sort it out. When you have these salts that have the ferment in there, they definitely it's just a whole different level of what's going on. You put it on scrambled eggs, you put it on popcorn. It's just kind of mind blowing how it how it tastes.
I love it. I
What more
need
did I
to try more
say?
popcorn
It's good stuff.
immediately. Okay. Yeah, I that and we use them. We there's 3 flavor. We have 3 flavors. Are those are the 3 flavors you have? Okay.
Yeah, one of my favorite things with the kimchi salt too, besides popcorn, is I'll just cut up tofu, or you could do chicken, mushrooms. I just cut them up and saute them in coconut oil with the salt, and it's just so easy. I've had a mom say, when I put it on my broccoli, my kids will eat it, but they won't touch it. And so we say a pinch of probiotics. We are definitely not promoting this as a probiotic substitute. By all means, you should be having
Yeah.
a bite of the fresh stuff.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing when you cook.
Yeah.
It's best to not really cook these foods, but I call it the sacrificial kraut when I do cook. Sometimes I'll caramelize some with some prosciutto, and then I'll throw it in risotto. But I'm just like, just grab a forkful while you're cooking, and then you're getting it in there.
Okay, Julie, I need your cookbook immediately. What's can you give like another like recipe that's one of your other favorites? Because it's
Yeah.
almost lunchtime and I'm just like this is like food porn for me.
So one of my favorite things that we do is, like, I'll just take our kimchi, which is again
Yeah.
garlic and ginger are the flavors that really come through it. And I'll mix it with peanut butter. And so I just blend the two. You can add a little water, a little olive oil, a little tamari, sesame. But at the end of the day, just peanut butter and our kimchi and a little brine make this really lovely, creamy peanut sauce. And so then you can just drizzle it over broccoli or, rice or tofu, and it just pulls everything together. You get all the fiber from the product and all the flavor. So again, it's just that balance that's created when it's all blended up.
That's awesome.
So that's another one. Our Emerald City has coriander and dill, kale and turmeric. So people who love pickles really like this one because of that dill, but it's fabulous chopped up with tuna fish with a little mayo. So it's like you don't have to chop pickles and onions and celery. You just chop this up and mix it in. Really good. I'll do salmon burgers and then
Yeah.
just throw a salmon burger cooked over a bed of greens, throw the kraut over it, a little bit of oil, and now you can use it as a salad dressing. And it's an ingredient in your salad. And then you can use any of the leftover brine after, of course, you've consumed. You don't want to drain the brine off and use it. Some people do that because they get so excited about the flavors.
Yeah.
But the brine is what really protects it and keeps the integrity of, those bacteria alive and protects the food. So anyway, those are just some other simple ideas. And I probably should mention the carrots too, because this is just,
they're really good.
And this is a really great gateway product for people trying to get their kids into it. And little kids, like a year, they love to just grab a little strand of carrots, for not choking and stuff. But this is brilliant. Just throwing it. It's over some arugula with a little bit of oil, some salt and pepper, and some nuts and seeds. Boom, you've got a gourmet salad. And people are like, what's in here? And it's that ferment that they taste.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
I love it. I love it because that one's so yummy. I forgot. I was like, I had written down on a Post-it here, and I'm like, carrots.
Well, you mentioned, this salty and the sweet. We've talked about that a little bit. And think about, like, from a chef's perspective or from cooking, we're always searching kind of for one more thing to balance our soup or whatever. So we as a culture, or, as a blended culture, know that citrus, so often lemon or lime or vinegars are what we reach for to try to get that nice balance. But I'm like, go for the kraut because it's the same sort of acidic, pH, but now you're going to get all the health benefits too. So it can't replace a true lemon or a lime or a balsamic vinegar, but it can sure do a lot for the flavor profile, and the health.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And truly, like, the recipes that you're stating, like, sort of elevate a dish that,
Oh,
makes you feel like you didn't spend all this time chopping and cleaning it all up. Like, it's there. You just, like, take it out of the jar and it's ready to go.
well, another thing is a smoothie, like if you just, how many people make a smoothie? I used to just do, my basic is a frozen banana, some kind of fruit that I have, maybe a handful of frozen blueberries and a little bit of yogurt, right? That's kind of, or some juice or whatever. And then I was like, yeah, think about how many people have issues with dairy and they don't even know it, or think about all the sugar. So if you take the yogurt out and you use some nut milk and a scoop of sauerkraut, typically the plain or the carrots, now you're getting, probiotics, you're getting that sour flavor like you would from yogurt. And then you're getting the creaminess from the nut milk. And, there's always, so and then you've got all the sugars in the fruit. So you don't need the other sugar that typically is loaded into a smoothie.
Yeah. Yeah.
excuse me,
True.
into the yogurt.
Yeah. 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 You're just like working around that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I really like that.
Kalamata, you can take
Yeah.
Kalamata olives and blend it up with many different flavors. So equal parts of olives and kraut, a little parsley and garlic. It's a phenomenal. Changing the texture is your best friend when you're trying to get people who aren't into it
Hmm.
to eat it. You know,
Yeah.
it's best to just not tell people sometimes. And
Yeah.
you can slide some into any sandwich, any
Hmm.
wrap, any bowl. So changing the texture, blending it, chopping it is
Hmm.
a really easy way to just incorporate it in.
Okay. This is so good. This is so, so, so good. I mean, now
We
I'm
have,
starving.
if you go to our website, we have lots of recipes on there. We sell the book online. We'll share these little recipe cards with you. If you sign up for our little email news blast, which we don't do anything but share with you every other week, or we share new recipes that we've come up with. And, one of my favorite little things to do too is like chop up some plain kraut with some basil, some cilantro and parsley. And then you have all these flavors from,
Yeah.
all the intensity from those herbs. And then you throw the plain kraut in there. And now you can just sprinkle it, it's like a little flavor bomb,
Yeah.
full of
Yeah.
fiber now and full of bugs, good bugs.
Totally. And then, I mean, that's like, even that's a topping for you grill some steak or you have some short ribs or something, like it's just an easy thing to add on. That's like the health benefits are so, like, how can you not? Like, I mean, like, it's like one of the things once you know, like, how do you unknow?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that, like we're up here in Seattle, our kimchi's on the Beecher's grilled cheese, which is exciting. Where our Emerald City is at the Climate Pledge Arena. So you can get it on an Impossible brat. And we are really trying to do more food service. So if any of your listeners anywhere, we do sell in bulk
Okay.
version
Now too.
it around the Northwest, and we're trying to get a little further out. But these foods should be in hospitals, in universities, in old folks' homes. I was talking to my mother has Alzheimer's, and she eats these foods now every day, and it just helps keep her, they get blended up into her food. But I'm like, let's go think about how many people when they're aging struggle with constipation and if these carrots were just on the salad bar or these foods would be ripe to be mixed in. And I talked to the dietitian at the place and she's like, well, what about people who are autoimmune impaired? And I'm like, okay, well, what about all the sugar that you're serving every day there that is not good for people with autoimmune issues? And what about the otherwise healthy people that are all there? How come you won't give them these foods? You're just protecting the few sick ones from food that would probably really be helping them,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I don't want to get on another like far off tangent here, but I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was a doctor, and both there's two GIs, and one was in the UK, one was in the US, and the guy in the UK is like, I am actually on a mission to get better food at hospitals, but not for the patients yet, but for the
The
doctors.
doctors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
And
like,
yes,
"You have no
name.
idea." I like had fast food because that's all I could afford for so many years until I finally became a doctor. And then now it's like, how do
There's
I have this
just
Coca-Cola to stay awake and coffee? And, it's not healthy.
how can
Doctors
we expect these doctors and nurses and all of these people who are trying to care for sick people if they don't even have access to these foods there? I'm talking with the chef at Harborview, which is our big, kind of trauma hospital here. And I mean, I would love to just say, I just said, how about one salad offering and one sandwich? And, I have a whole vision of what I think could be offered. But at the end of the day, a lot of these companies are so big and they're being run by people who are saying everything has to be pasteurized. We don't want to risk anybody getting sick. It needs to be available in 10-gallon buckets and it has to be, delivered via this, distribution company that,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
the issues.
All the logistics and liability
A
and
lot of people that talk about, local, we do local and women owned and plant based, but so many of those things are just almost created to look good. But then
yeah.
when you're one of those people saying, hey, I'm this person, I'm making
Yeah.
these foods, it's organic, we buy farm food, it's, it doesn't work for
Mhm.
a number of different reasons. But we have a lot of really great things happening and there's a lot of good people who believe in this. And so it's a matter of just doing what we're doing, continuing to share.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing, so many people, beyond being plant-based and probiotic and women-owned and all that, these foods, there's so many people following, a vegan, a paleo, a keto, a whole 30 diet. And this is pretty versatile food because again, it's a vegetable. It's just like a
Mhm.
probiotic vegetable.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. 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 Yeah. Yeah. It truly can fit any, like in the very beginning,
Yeah.
anyone, any age, any size, any condition. It is a food that everyone should have. And
Yeah.
you're making it easy for them to do it and really, 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 really great
Really
tasting,
good.
amazing product. So I
They
love this.
can find
Yeah.
us too on social media on, we're Firefly Kitchens Seattle on Instagram and we're on Facebook and we love sharing and I love if people want to reach out and say, hey, what would you suggest I do? I love sun-dried tomatoes. How can I, that kind of is fun for me. I'm hoping to redo my cookbook, Fresh and Fermented, which is sold out. I mean, I think I have some copies. I have the hopefully the last 50 copies that, but it would be, I love it. There's so much good stuff in there and I kind of want to redo it and get some more new things that I've created because it's not rocket science. It's just taking foods that we're already eating and commingling them in different ways.
Awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I cannot wait. And when this episode airs, my digital course will be out, and it does feature Julie's products, guys, because they're the fermented foods that I love and trust and cannot recommend enough. So, yeah. Well, Julie, I have one last question for you. This is a question I ask everybody. If you had a button, this magic button with you at all times, and it could do one thing for you at all times, what would it do?
It's such a great question. And I would have to say, relax me. Be, you know, because I kind of just start spinning sometimes with excitement and stress and I think about the whole reason I'm trying to do this, I'm making this food is because I want to share and I care and I want to help people, but it's not an easy thing to do. And then I'm like, okay, but wait, what about me? What about my health? And I think I can spend 30 minutes trying to meditate or trying to relax or, go run to get my blood pressure down and calm down. So I feel like that button, if it could just kind of ground me, grounding is probably a little better word than relax because relax is so broad, but I'd say that's what I'd choose.
Oh, I like that. I could use that on a day like today.
Yeah.
Um, a million things going on and just look like that forced moment. Not for, but
Well,
it's not
it's
forced. That's
like,
the wrong word, but
as a mom, you've got 3 kids, so we're sitting here, we're present together. But I guarantee you there's some stuff going on in the back of your head, like who's somebody pawing at the door, or I need to pick somebody up, or I need to drop, oh, I need to get a gift. And it's, I'm in my later 50s and my kids are gone. I'm not thinking about those things, but the business has me, just always thinking and connecting and kind of calming those other little things that are firing is a little challenging at times.
100%. 100%. Well, Julie, this was such a blast. I will have all the links to your website and social media. We'll include some recipes on the website and also in the newsletter. So it's going out to absolutely everybody. And then, guys, get on the fermented food train. If you haven't heard about it before, you've heard about it now. And Julie
Just
and Firefly
Google,
Kitchen
yeah,
is
Google the health benefits. Like, don't listen to me. Like, there's so many really great articles out there, from Stanford and Harvard and doctors and nutritionists and health coaches around. And I really encourage everybody to give it, try making it. It's so easy, and there's 1,000 tutorials out there on how to make it at home. So
awesome. Oh,
thank
okay.
you, Shannon.
Thank you so much, Julie. It was awesome
Okay.
to catch up too.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye.